Imagine turning your raw data into a dynamic story that speaks volumes at a glance. Whether you are a business analyst, a financial expert, or a project manager, these dashboards will become your secret weapon. Hello everyone and welcome to this exciting journey into the world of interactive dashboards using Excel. Today we are going to explore how you can leverage the power of Excel to create visually appealing and highly functional dashboards that can transform your data analysis and decision-making processes. But before that, make sure to like, share and subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so that you do not miss out on any new updates on this channel. Now, Excel dashboards are an incredibly powerful tool for anyone who works with data. They allow you to present complex information in a clear and concise manner, making it easier to understand and analyze data at a glance. Whether you are a business analyst, a financial expert, or a project manager, dashboards can help you track key matrices, identify trends, and make data-driven decisions more effectively. Now think about it. Without dashboards, you might be scrolling through endless rows and columns of data trying to make sense of all of it. But with a well-designed dashboard, all the crucial information is right at your fingertips, presented in a way that's easy to digest. It's like turning a jumble of raw data into a clear and insightful story. Now, let's dive into pivot tables. A pivot table essentially lets you pivot or rotate your data to view it from different perspectives. This means you can group, filter, and sort your data in ways that provide meaningful insights. For example, you can easily aggregate sales data by region, product, or time period to identify where's your highest sales coming from. Creating a pivot table is simple. Start by selecting your data range, then go to the Insert tab and click on Pivot Table. You'll see a new sheet with a blank pivot table framework. From here, you can drag and drop fields into rows, columns, values, and filter areas to structure your data. It's this flexibility and ease of use that makes pivot tables such a powerful tool for data analysis. Now let's move on to our case study section. In this, what we'll do is we'll basically create a dynamic business dashboard in Excel from scratch. We'll take a dummy data set in which we'll have different sort of categories of different sort of numbers in play, and we'll create a business dashboard out of it. How to do it? Let's look at right now. So currently here I have a data set about a particular product and the region in which it is sold, the units that are sold, the total revenue that is there, the cost that is incurred, the profit that is achieved, and on which day it has been sold. So we have all sort of combined all sort of different parameters in play in which you have units, you have the revenue, you have the date, right? You have all different types of characterization as well in terms of types of product. So we'll start off with this. We'll start off creating a particular business dashboard from scratch. So for that, what I will do is I'll create a sheet naming it as dashboard. Right? So this dashboard is created. So just imagine how does the dashboard look like. It has to be interactive, it has to be dynamic. It means if you click on some filter, it should be applicable to all the graphs that would be in the particular dashboard. So in order to do that, I'll just take a set of cells in this range and just click on the option merge and center. Right? So as we can see that a proper header title has been generated. I'll click on it. I'll write here business dashboard. Right, I'll click on it, I'll change its font and I'll change the font number, the size of the font. I'll create it as 44. Also I'll fill some color into it. Okay, so I'll click on home and fill color. Let's take orange. So this is how your basic setup, your basic structure of your business dashboard would look like, right? So now how would you actually go about creating the different sort of charts and graphs out of this data set? So the first element that we talk about is creating the table out of this data set. So always remember that when you are starting off with creating any sort of dashboard or any sort of visualization, the first thing that you need to keep in mind is converting this data set into a tabular format. So in order to make the table, what we'll do is we'll click on this insert tab over here and click on the table icon, right? Or you can use Control T for that. So when I click on table, a dialog box appears which asks me where is the data for your table. So now now Excel understands what you are doing. So it automatically takes the region in which your data set is there. So it automatically, you can see the dotted line that is coming up over here. So it means it has already captured the data set that is there. Then it asks me whether whether my table has headers or not. So the icon is clicked automatically because it will understand that you already have header in your particular data set. So I'll click OK on it, and it changes it from data set to being in a tabular form, right? So all the things are mentioned over here clearly. Now the second element is there are a lot of numbers over here, right? Right now you cannot distinguish between what the data type of unit is and what the data type of total revenue is. In terms of data type, I mean, is it a currency or a general number? Is it an accounting number or whatnot? So I'll click on 3 columns, that is total revenue, cost and profit. Now you have to understand these things are currency based, right? So I want to change these numbers into currency format. How to do that? What we'll do is we'll click on home button over here, and under the number tab over here you have a drop down in which is asked that the cells that you have chosen, what are they, right? So I'll just uncheck the ones that are in header and then click on this general dialog box, and you have a lot of different options over here, right? When these are a lot of different options, you can choose any one of them. I want it to be currency, so I'll click on currency, right? So right now it is choosing in the form of INR. You can also choose it in the form of, let's say, $1 or something that you would want, right? So that will also show up over here. Now after this is done, let's focus on our first visualization that we'll see, right? So that would be regarding the region and the total profit that is there, right? So as mentioned earlier, the element that we'll be using here is pivot charts. So in order to do that, you have to just click on this any sort of cell in this range, click on insert and pivot table. So when you click on pivot table, it asks you, a dialog box comes up, it asks you pivot table from table or range. Then select a table or a range, which one would be there. It automatically selects the table that we have actually created right now. Now choose where you want the pivot table to be placed. I would want my pivot table to be in a new worksheet, and the reason for that is I have to create multiple such charts. So one pivot table would have one chart of it, right? So I would need, let's consider for this example, for our dummy data set, we would create 3 such charts. So in order to do that, we'll create it in a new worksheet, right? So as you can see, the pivot table entirely new worksheet has been opened up. Now in order to make some visualizations over here, we can start off right now. But what will I do right now is that I'll click on control and then drag and drop this sheet into multiple sheets. So after we have copied these pivot tables into multiple different sheets, what we'll do is our first characterization or the first analysis that we have to do is about profit by region. What does it mean? It means basically calculating the total profit that would be there in different product lines that are there, right? So all combined together in terms of region will calculate the profit. How to do that? I click on, first I'll name this sheet as profit by region so that we are clear in which sheet what type of analysis we did. So profit by region comes first. After this, here you can see you have pivot table fields, the icon that is mentioned over here. Now in this, it's nothing but basically our entire column list that is there in our initial data set, right? Our initial data set sheet was updated data set. So you can see we have region over here, we have type of product, units, total revenue, cost, profit and date. Now when we have all this combined together, the next set of element that we'll do is we'll click on our sheet that was profit by region. Now click on this region part and drag and drop to the rows part of it. So basically what we want is the number of countries that are there should come in terms of rows, and the profit that is there should come in terms of columns. So when I click on any numerical value, right, we'll always go for values point of view, because value is something in which it can calculate, it may add and subtract. So that would be the number point of view. So we'll add it in the values column over here, and you can see it automatically creates different regions. So we have Brazil, Canada, China, Germany and Mexico, and we have the profits that are mentioned over here. So this is one thing that is incredibly useful for us to know, that what is the different type of profits that we are creating over here. So now what we'll do after this is we'll create a graph out of it, right? We'll create a pivot graph out of it. In order to do that, I have to click on pivot table analyze tab over here. Then we'll click on pivot chart, and you see a dialog box opens up in which you have to insert the type of chart. Now from your understanding, you have to see what type of chart you want to include, right? To make it a bit more complex, what I'll do is I'll add a field of type of product also in this. So I'll create that in the columns point of view, and now we have product types in columns and the region in rows, and the sum of all these is mentioned at the end in grand total. Now I'll again click on pivot chart, and now we can see the little bit of dynamics have changed. The chart is much more visual now. So I'll click on, let's say, stacked column chart, which looks more clean and better for our usage. Now in this particular element, you have to actually think which chart you have to include. Now your thought process should be in a way that, okay, you are the one who is working on this data set. When you are working on the data set, you are the absolute correct person to know what are the elements, where are they. But you have to demonstrate this visualizations to maybe your higher management or external stakeholders who are a complete layman in terms of knowing what data set it is, right? So they are just interested in the final output or the final graph that you will portray, and that graph should be as simplified as possible. It should not be a cluttered graph. It should not be something that a layman comes and sees and gets confused. So in order to prevent all of this, we'll create a very basic, well to understand, clear graph out of it. So we have column over here, we have line over here, we have pie charts, bar charts, area charts and lot more. But for our convenience, let's say if I click on this line chart, you can see how cluttered it gets, right? When it is this cluttered, what we really want to do is minimize this clutter. So we'll not choose line graph in this scenario, we'll choose column chart. And in column charts also, you have number of different settings that are there. Clustered column, stacked column, 100% stacked column, 3D clustered, 3D stacked, all these things, right? So I would want it to be as simple as possible. So I'll just use stacked column chart and I'll click on OK. So when I do that, my chart is now visible. Now I have clear understanding of, okay, Brazil, you have different product lines in Brazil, lemon tart, mint cookie, oatmeal cake, peanut butter, vanilla wafer, and so on and so forth. Now when this is done, I will next move on to knowing what these things are, right? So in order to make your chart more dynamic, you can click on design part over here. You have different charting styles. I'll click on any chart that I feel is good. So let's say I click on this dark one over here, the dark mode over here, right? This is simplified, everything is clear, the numbers are clear, the labeling is perfect, right? If I also want to label it properly, I have to use add chart element, right? And then you have the axis titles, you have chart titles, you have data labels, and so on and so forth. So axis title, I have primary horizontal, then primary vertical. For primary horizontal, I'll click on it and I can name it as region. Similarly, what I'll do is I'll click on add chart element, click on axis title, click on primary vertical. So in this it shows up. I'll just delete what is written, dummy text, and I'll add values, or I can just write profit, right? So now you can see that my graph is now easy to understand, easy to read, and it does not have a lot of complexities that are involved, right? Now what I'll do is next is I'll click on this graph. In my dashboard, I'll just paste it. Wow, now this looks something that is much more clean. Now you have to make sure that this element is very well designed in terms of user interface, right? So as you have user interface in websites, this similar way you have user interface in dashboards. Now this dashboard should be very easy to look at in terms of visuals. So the color coordination, the type of text that you use has to be subtle to your eyes as well, right? So for the second part of visualization, we can have different parameters in play. Now, as a data analyst, you have to figure out what type of visualization would you want in your business dashboard. I'll choose, for example, here, I'll choose, let's say the region, or let's say the type of product, and I will mark it with the units that are sold. So in that case, I'll get all the different types of product lines that are there in the company and the units that are sold in that case, right? So we get a different sort of figure of these units. Now what will I do? I'll just click on this, then click on pivot table and analyze and create the pivot chart out of it, right? So now again, this would be something, let's say like a pie chart, right? Pie chart would also make sense in this kind of scenario. Also, I can use a column chart, but I'll go ahead with the pie chart for this one to get the best view of the units that are sold per product category, right? So now in this case, when I already have this, again I can have a different viewpoints for it. I can have different charting patterns of it. So with that, I can make the modifications as per my choice, right? Here I do not want to have a lot of different things, so I'll just click on the filters and I want to remove the button, so I'll just remove the buttons that are there, right? I'll copy this particular chart and paste it in our final dashboard. Right. You can also align this accordingly. You can align it in the way that you would want. And again, as I just mentioned, that your final dashboard has to look very elegant. It has to be very visually appealing so that you can take care of yourself. You can know according to your, let's say, your company branding, you can make the dashboard according to that as well, right? So these are the two graphs that I have made. And the third one, let's focus on this time about, let's say, the months, or maybe let's say the years. And let's take into account the total revenue. Okay, so the year by year analysis is there. Again, I can choose to make a pivot chart out of it, or maybe let's say a stack column, but stack column would not make sense here, so I'll actually choose line chart over here, right? Pause. Start. So we have the dates that are there and the sum of total revenue that is there. So we can again create a pivot chart out of it, and we can create it according to different either quarters, or we can create it in terms of years according to our wish. So I'll just go ahead with the quarters and years point of view, right? Again, this I can copy paste to our final dashboard, right? Apart from this, if we have to create any other visualizations, we can do that too. And when we are actually creating these sort of visualizations, we have to make sure that your final dashboard is dynamic and not static. So what does that mean? That basically means that we can add different options to it. For example, when I click on this particular graph, I go to pivot chart and analyze, then you have something known as insert timeline, right? There's date option mentioned over here. So I click on OK, and you can actually see that the date timeline has been created now, right? So I want to fix it somewhere over here, let's say. So I'll fix it over here. Then the second thing that is required is I would also want to know if I can filter out a lot of things, right? It is known as slicing. So I can insert a slicer over here which has all these elements that are there. So I'll just click on the thing that are there and I can create a slicer out of it, right? So 4 different types of slicers are there. I'll first create the region slicer. Then I will add the type of product slicer.
Okay, so I can maybe adjust it somewhere over here. I'll remove the units and the total revenue slicer because that would not be needed for my calculation. So the region is set up over here, the type of product is set up over here. So now it makes a little bit more sense to have all these graphs. So we'll focus our attention to this particular graph, and what we'll do is we'll change it by regions, right? You can see that if I click on particular region or the particular country, it shows me the graph of that, right? But if you can see, the others don't move, right? So what will we do? We'll just right click and then we'll just check the connections, and we'll add the connections to all the charts that are there. Right now only one chart that is mentioned. The other two charts also I'll tick mark so that it also responds in that manner. So when I click on Canada, it'll just show me what is happening in Canada. This is the products that are sold, the total sum of units in Canada, right? Similarly over here, the revenue of Canada only will come, right? So this is the dashboard that we are talking about in building dynamic dashboards in Excel. So also the matter of fact that if we are doing a lemon tart mint cookie, we can also do it in the same manner, in which we can again go to report connections, add all other two slices as well. So this will show according to what we are doing. So first it will show Canada, then it will show mint cookie, right? So mint cookie profits have been shown up. Similarly, oat meal cake, this will also show up, right? So in that way it gets connected through the entire thing. So that's how building of dynamic dashboard happens in Excel. So it's relatively very simple, but not a lot of people use it because they are not aware about such things can happen in Excel, right? This was just a dummy data set for me to make sure that you are doing the exact same thing that is required. So this was all about the demo of how the business dashboard works.
Congratulations on completing the business dashboard using Excel course. Ready to elevate your career? Join our postgraduate certificate in data science and AI and gain exclusive benefits like a complimentary Python programming bootcamp, 7+ case studies, dedicated student support, and access to our job opportunities portal. Don't miss out on this chance to transform your career. Invest in yourself today and join our program. Click on the link in the description to enroll now and take the next step in your career journey.